feel like I always assumed that every word a presidential candidate said, or most of them, would be so thought out, advisors checking everything, focus grouping. But then you see, especially with Trump's behavior, strategically wacky decisions made in the rhetoric he'll use. And then he actually, in the first clip you're going to watch from this interview, says something that we've seen reflected in a lot of Republicans' language. And then I have a few different moments from the same interview. But first, let's start with what I'm referring to, which is just a bad political mistake on Trump's behalf, or on Trump's part. And then you'll see it with a different Republican in a second.
Blame always seems to go on her end to corporate price fixing and vilifying the corporations in this country, the companies in this country. When asked how she's going to pay for the agenda last night on 60 Minutes, she just keeps saying she's going to tax the rich. Even Bill Whitaker on 60 Minutes is saying, well, we live in the real world. How are you really going to do that?
Well, you don't tax the rich because the rich are going to look. The rich pay most of the tax in the country, first of all. You know, people hate to say it. They hate to hear it. But you take a certain very small percentage, and most of the tax is paid by the rich. But the problem that she has is she's going to the communist method. Take all incentive. And you know what the rich do and the corporations do? They leave the country and they go to another country that's more friendly from a tax standpoint and other standpoints like a regulation standpoint. Yeah. Her agenda will bring us in to a 1929 style depression, and it's guaranteed. She has no idea.
And of course, hundreds and hundreds of economists have come out to say Trump's economic proposals would be the more disastrous ones, not Vice President Harris's. Hers would lead to good economic performance like what we've seen in the economic recovery under Biden and Harris, but Trump keeps making that promise or prediction. But then being on the record saying, quote unquote, you don't tax the rich, he was trying to say you don't do it more than we're currently doing, and then acting like, let's be honest, modest increases to how much tax revenue is being brought in. Sometimes that's not even implemented through tax rate increases, but also through mechanisms that are just seeking to get the amount of taxes we should be getting from people, especially wealthy individuals who are fantastic at avoiding paying taxes. And before going further, Jason Smith said this on Maria Bartiromo's show.
And what's so ridiculous is for her statement to say that the rich should pay their fair share. Maria, if you took every single dollar of every billionaire in the United States, it could not even fund 9 months of our existing government. And she's wanting to spend trillions of dollars above that. It's just not even feasible. It's not doable. It's just a talking point that she throws out there. She is trying to just get her talking points correct this election cycle. Her policies are absolutely atrocious.
And just to zero in on the strategy here of saying it's so ridiculous, you would say wealthy folks need to pay their fair share. We've seen the studies. I'll reference more reporting on this here in a second, but it's not that we're saying let's go to some crazy extreme where now wealthy people have all their money taken away. It's that right now they're paying so little compared to what I think most people would say is reasonable, and that should be properly addressed, which fully 70% of registered voters, Bloomberg reports, in 7 swing states say they favor higher taxes on billionaires, and they support higher income taxes on people who make more than $400,000 per year. So a bad mistake for Trump to be saying this right before the election when Harris's position is one that the majority of Americans and swing state voters who are going to decide this election actually buy into. And then to Jason Smith's point about something about billionaires not being able to fund what she's talking about, the top 1% holds $38.7 trillion in wealth. And this comes in contrast to 30 years ago, where America's middle class commanded twice as much wealth as the upper 1%. Now the 1%, top 1%, has more wealth than all of the middle class combined. And then you have here demonstrated by ProPublica, what I was talking about earlier, where in so many years, in this case, 25 richest Americans paid less in an effective tax rate than you'd expect for as it's always listed off, a teacher or a nurse or whoever it might be. And certain billionaires are paying an effective single-digit tax rate on their income, which is, I think we can all agree, too low. And then they'll say, well, no, two last things, and I'll play more clips from this interview. By the way, make sure you're subscribed to the channel by clicking that subscribe button. But they'll say, no, but if you raise taxes back to what they were before Trump, even because of his huge cut to the corporate tax rate, all the corporations will leave. Well, they didn't all leave when it was that right before you in recent memory. And people are going to want access to the United States consumer base. It's such a large pool of consumers and wealth that they're going to want access to it, even if they have to pay a little bit higher in taxes. And even going further back in history, we've had incredibly economically productive and high growth eras when taxes were much higher on those who were wealthier. And then calling modest increases to tax rates and tax enforcement communism is, of course, very silly. And then last point, Trump says that the excuse for cutting taxes on wealthy folks, as Trump did, or trying to get more tax revenue from them is, well, they're already paying the majority of the taxes. Well, yeah, because they have the vast majority of the wealth. So that makes sense. All right, on to a different topic. Watch how Trump answers a question about his lies about the hurricane response.
Says that you and Republicans are lying about FEMA siphoning their funds to send it to the migrant crisis that this administration has created. What's your answer to that?
Well, he's paid billions of dollars. He's giving money away to illegal aliens, as you would say, or illegal migrants. You can call whatever you want. The name is the same. The people that come into our country illegally, many of them are murderers. Many of them are drug dealers and gang members. The crime rates all over the world are going down because their criminals are being dumped into our country at levels that nobody's ever seen before. Yeah. It's an absolute outrage what they've done to our country at the border and what they've done with respect to inflation and energy and stupid electric car mandates where everybody's going to have an electric car in a short period of time, and they don't want all electric cars. And by the way, electric cars are fine for a certain percentage of the market, but you have to have gasoline propelled cars. You have to have, I would say, hybrids are very.
So what's his response? He can't specifically back up the lies that he's been telling, so he just sort of reasserts them and then goes on to rant about all the normal things that he's ranting about day to day and gets onto electric cars. So why are you lying about the hurricane response? Money's not being redirected from the response funds to undocumented immigrants like they're claiming. The weather's not being controlled by the government, as Marjorie Greene's claiming, etc. Then you have this.
Internal polling shows you +3 in Wisconsin, which, as I see it, is one of the toughest swing states for you to win. You've got a rally in California this weekend, as I understand it. Just your final thoughts.
Well, I heard about that. Wisconsin, they say, is tough, but I won it one time, and I think I did even better the second time. We didn't get the decision, but I will tell you, I think I did a lot better. A lot of bad things happened. I'm going to California. We have a really big one coming up in California, and only because if we had honest voting, I believe I'd win California. I think I'd win a lot of states that we don't win. We have to straighten out.
Trump got clobbered in California electorally. I think lost by 28, 29 percentage points. Just an absolute trouncing. He would not win California if things were counted fair, meaning they were counted fair and that was the result. So he would lose by the amount that he lost to in a fair election because that's the one that he had. Then this.
I built hundreds of miles of wall, and I would have built another 200 miles, far more than I said I was going to build, and it worked. And then I got the Mexican government to give us their military free of charge by doing certain things. Yeah. It's free of charge. We had the best border in the history of our country 4 years ago.
So it's normal things, but Aaron Rupar said, of all the things that didn't happen, this didn't happen the most, referencing I got the Mexican government to give us their military free of charge. He also denies the bombshell allegations in Bob Woodward's new book, War, that Trump has called multiple times with Putin since Trump left the White House.
I do. I believe she'll
Let me
be
just
worse.
ask you one more thing about the Woodward book, because they're going to their favorite subject, which is, of course, Russia. They're alleging that you have had several phone calls with Vladimir Putin over the last 3.5 years. Can I ask if that's true?
That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. Look, I know Bob Woodward. You know, I'm suing him because
I know Bob Woodward. I'm suing him. I know him from court. Yeah, that definitely happened. Or I should say, I definitely believe Bob Woodward's reporting more than I believe Trump's word on this. And it's very concerning that that was happening. Why are you calling with Putin multiple times after you leave the White House? And I forgot to mention when we did the segment about that book and the reporting around it, that Trump also is reported to have given, when this was really valuable, certain COVID tests to Putin. And that was something that the Kremlin has confirmed, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty crazy. Then he just goes on about undocumented immigration and all this stuff. So I'm going to stop it there. I'm so sick of hearing his nonsense on these topics. He says that even though the Haitian immigrants that have been fear-mongered about are people with legal statuses in the United States, quote, they are illegal immigrants as far as I'm concerned, he says. That's it. Let me know what you thought in the comments.